I took a road trip a few weeks ago, hoping to clear my mind after a tough breakup. I'm a freelance photographer, not a pro, but I love taking pictures. The American Southwest seemed perfect, so I drove through endless highways, searching for inspiration. One evening I pulled into a small motel in the Mojave Desert. It looked charming in a dusty old way. They said the stargazing was amazing. I thought, this could be magical. I felt a bit excited. As I settled into my room, I noticed some strange paintings on the walls. They showed featureless figures. I stared at one for a moment, and it felt like something shifted in my head. When I looked away, it seemed like the figures looked different. I shook my head, telling myself I was just tired. But as days passed, things started changing. I kept seeing shadows at the corners of my vision. I felt jumpy, like someone was watching me. One night I noticed that my camera battery was missing. I searched for it everywhere but couldn't find it. Just as I was about to give up, I found it sitting on the dresser. I felt uneasy. Why was it just there? It had to be my imagination. I met a girl named Sarah while I was there. We talked for hours and she was friendly. I mentioned the motel and those odd paintings. Her smile faded. "You should leave before dark," she warned, looking serious. "People have gone missing around here." I felt a chill go through me. Was she joking? I couldn't tell anymore. Later that night I heard whispers. They seemed to come from the walls. I looked around, but the room was empty. The air felt heavy, like something was right behind me. My heart raced. I didn't know what was happening. Was I losing it? I figured leaving the motel would help, but I felt stuck. The next morning I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to photograph those paintings again. My hands shook as I picked up my camera. The air felt thick, heavy with a strange energy. I didn't want to leave anymore. Suddenly, I sensed something in the room. It felt like a presence closing in. I could almost hear a voice whispering, "Why don't you stay?" I whipped my head around, but I was alone. I felt like I was slipping away from reality. I felt desperate to understand everything, but part of me wanted to run. My heart was racing. The shadows in the corners shifted again, and I stepped back, terrified. The paintings seemed to watch me, their figures shifting again. I didn't know what to do. Should I pack my things and leave? Or should I stay and face whatever was happening? I stood there frozen, wishing I had never come. The desert had promised freedom, peace, and inspiration, but now it felt like a trap. That night I didn't sleep. I just kept staring at the paintings, waiting for them to change once more. And they did. The next morning, I felt different. It was like a fog had settled in my mind. I couldn't remember how many times I had looked at those paintings. I decided to grab my camera and head outside. Maybe some fresh air would clear my head. As I stepped into the harsh sunlight, the brightness stung my eyes. I squinted and looked toward the horizon. The desert seemed almost unreal, the sands shimmering under the sun. I felt a strange pull, as if the landscape was calling me. I wandered a few steps away from the motel, camera in hand, trying to find something captivating in the scenery. That's when I stumbled upon an old rusted truck half buried in sand. It had clearly been there for years, covered in dust and patches of orange rust. I lowered my camera, intrigued. I made my way closer, feeling the heat radiating from the metal. As I got near, a sudden chill washed over me, contrasting sharply with the desert heat. It sent shivers down my spine. As I looked through the camera lens, I could see the truck in stark detail. Something caught my eye on the driver's side. It was a faded photograph glued to the dash. Curiosity tinged with fear spurred me to take a closer look. I reached inside, brushing aside cobwebs. The photo was black and white and showed a family, 2 adults and a young girl. They looked happy, but something about their smiles seemed forced. Suddenly a voice broke through the silence. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, heart racing, but there was no one in sight. Just the truck, the desert, and the distant mountains. The shadows I had seen in the motel were now clawing at my thoughts, dragging me down into confusion. I pushed the photograph into my pocket, convinced I needed to get back to my room. But as I turned, I felt a presence. An unease washed over me. I quickened my pace, but something pulled at my back, urging me to stay. "Look closer," it whispered. I gasped, staring into the microphone of my own head. Ignoring the voice, I hurried back to the motel, the photograph clutched tightly in my hand. My heart pounded, and the feeling of being watched returned with a vengeance. As I entered my room, I slammed the door shut behind me. I was panting, feeling trapped within these walls as if they were closing in. I laid the photograph on the table and stared at it, consumed by a strange mix of dread and curiosity. The image had felt oddly familiar, like it had unlocked something deep within my memory. I think I was driven to find out who they were. I grabbed my camera again. It was time to face those paintings one last time and see what they would reveal. Just as I reached for the doorknob, the lights flickered, plunging me into darkness. My heart dropped. The air grew unnaturally cold as I stood there, frozen, knowing I had to confront whatever was lurking in the shadows. Then everything went dark. I stood in the dark, my heart racing. The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. I fumbled for the light switch, but nothing happened. The motel room was pitch black, and I could feel panic creeping in. I stepped back, bumping into the flimsy table. The photograph fell, hitting the floor with a soft thud. I crouched to feel for it, but a sudden chill swept through the room, making me shiver. Just a power outage, I told myself, but deep down I knew that wasn't the only thing happening. I picked up the photo, holding it close as if it could protect me from whatever was lurking in the dark. As my eyes adjusted, I saw a faint glow coming from the window. I moved toward it, trying to ignore the way my skin prickled. As I neared, I saw the light flickering. It was coming from outside. I pulled back the curtain slightly and peeked out. In the distance, I saw shapes moving. Shadows danced against the desert landscape, twisting and turning in a way that felt wrong. My breath quickened. Were those the figures from the paintings? Were they real? My mind raced with questions that only fueled my anxiety. Then in the window's reflection, I saw something behind me, a dark silhouette standing near the door. I whipped around, ready to shout, but it was gone. I was alone again, except for the heavy silence pressing all around me. "Just my imagination," I muttered under my breath, but doubt gnawed at me. With trembling hands, I glanced back at the photograph, the faces of the family staring back at me. Something drew me in. I felt connected to them in a way I couldn't explain. I turned on my camera's flashlight, illuminating the room in a soft glow. The murky shadows receded a bit, but every rustling sound outside made me flinch. I opened the door and stepped out when suddenly the lights flickered back to life. I hastily looked around, half expecting something to leap out at me. The eerie quiet was gone. The desert was just a vast stretch of emptiness bathed in light. Yet an unsettling feeling lingered. I decided to check the main office, hoping for some answers or maybe just comfort. As I walked down the corridor, a strange feeling washed over me again. It reminded me of that voice near the truck. "You shouldn't be here." The thought sent chills through my spine. When I reached the office, the door was ajar. I pushed it open slowly, half expecting to find someone or something waiting for me. The room was empty, but the air felt charged as if electricity crackled just out of sight. I took a cautious step inside, and that's when I saw it. A small notebook lying open on the counter. I approached, my heart pounding. The pages were filled with scrawled notes about the family in the photograph. They were written in a hurried, almost panicked style. "The girl disappeared," one note read. "We must go back. They are not what they seem." The air grew thick with tension. I needed to know more, but I felt the weight of something watching me. Was it the shadows from the paintings, or was there something else? I could feel a presence creeping closer, and just when I was about to leave, a loud crash echoed from outside, shaking the walls of the motel. I froze. Whatever was happening was escalating, and I was caught right in the middle of it. I had to make a choice, face whatever was out there or retreat back into the shadows. I stood frozen, listening for another sound. My heart raced, but nothing followed the crash, just the stillness of the night and the hum of distant winds. The decision hung over me like a storm cloud. I weighed my options, but curiosity clawed at me. I took a deep breath and moved toward the door. Stepping outside felt like crossing an invisible line. The air was cooler and the stars twinkled overhead, but the atmosphere felt thick with tension. That crash had come from the direction of the parking lot. With every step, I felt the ground crunch beneath my feet, and each sound amplified my nerves. Finding courage, I made my way toward where the noise resonated. I kept the beam of my flashlight steady. The light swept across empty cars parked haphazardly, flickering shadows playing tricks on my mind. I felt like I was being watched, even though I knew it was just the shadows dancing. As I turned the corner, my stomach dropped. A large figure loomed near one of the cars, partially obscured by darkness. My breath hitched. Who or what was that? I glanced back, considering a hasty retreat, but my feet were glued to the spot. That's when I saw the figure move. It seemed to lean against the side of a truck. A strange sense of familiarity washed over me, as if I knew it somehow. I squinted, trying to make out more details, but the figure remained a blur. "Hello?" I called out, my voice high and shaky. There was no response, just silence. I took a cautious step forward, lifting my flashlight to illuminate the figure better. The beam cut through the darkness, and as the light hit it, I felt a wave of recognition. It was the girl from the photograph. Her face was etched in shadow, but there was no mistaking the dark curls that framed her face. "What are you doing here?" I blurted out, but the words felt hollow. She tilted her head slightly, a flicker of movement that made me hesitate. It was as if she was studying me, trying to see if I was real. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the desert wind. Panic surged through me. I thought about the notebook, the notes. "Where's your family?" I asked, my throat dry. "Behind you," she said simply. I turned, feeling a cold sweat break out across my back. The shadows seemed to coalesce, leaning in from all sides. I glanced over my shoulder and saw them, the figures from the paintings, emerging from the dark. The shapes twisted and slunk closer, their features obscured but menacing. I stumbled backward, bumping into the truck. "What do you want?" I shouted, heart pounding in my chest. "You must remember," the girl said, and suddenly a flash of light erupted in my mind. Images of the family, desperate and terrified, danced through my memory, their faces filled with a grief that sent chills down my spine. A sudden jolt ran through the ground, causing me to lose balance. I fell hard, the flashlight flying from my grip and plunging me into darkness once more. All around me, the whispers grew louder, drowning out the pounding of my heart. I scrambled to my feet, trying to find the flashlight. My hands shook as I fumbled for it, and just then I sensed movement behind me again. The figures were closing in, their forms just beyond my reach. I needed to escape. I turned, ready to charge back into the safety of the motel, but the girl's voice stopped me. "You can't run from the truth." In that moment I realized I wasn't just facing shadows. Something far deeper was at play. And as I took my first step back toward the motel, I knew they were coming for me. I bolted back toward the motel, my heart thundering. The shadows loomed behind me, stretching and warping as if they had a life of their own. I could hear the whispers now. They were a strange chorus of voices, a cacophony spilling over one another. The girl's words echoed in my mind. "You can't run from the truth." I didn't even know what truth I was avoiding. What truth could possibly involve these ghostly figures? Just as I made it to the entrance, I felt a cold hand brush against my shoulder. I spun around, expecting the girl to be there, but it was empty. Fumbling for the door handle, I yanked it open and stumbled inside. The warm air was a stark contrast to the cold chill that lingered over me. I slammed the door shut and pressed my back against it, trying to catch my breath. My heart raced as I leaned against the wood, hoping the barrier would keep whatever was outside from coming in. I took a moment to collect myself, looking around at the motel's familiar interior. The same peeling wallpaper, the faded carpet. It all felt suddenly sinister. I needed to know more about that photograph. I raced to my room, flipping on the lamp and rifled through my belongings. The notebook lay there, open to the pages filled with sketches and notes about the family. My hands trembled as I scanned the last drawing I'd made, the one that mirrored the girl's face, its features hauntingly similar but twisted in fear. Something on the page caught my eye. I leaned closer, noticing a name scrawled in the margins. Anna. It was accompanied by an address that shimmered under the bare lamplight. Then, I heard it again. A faint tapping at my window, persistent and rhythmic. Holding my breath, I turned slowly. The curtains billowed slightly, and I could see a shadow just outside. My skin prickled with dread. Anna, I called tentatively. There was no answer, just the tapping, now more urgent. Fighting my instincts, I moved closer, my heart sinking. I pulled back the curtain slightly. The light outside illuminated the figure, a small girl with dark curls, lithe and ghostly. She looked just like Anna, but her eyes, something wasn't right. They were hollow, unnervingly vacant. "Let me in," she whispered, her voice soft yet chilling. I stumbled back, shaking my head. "No, you're not real," I shot back, panic rising in my throat. "Please." Her voice melted into an echo, seeming to bounce off the walls of my mind. "You have to remember." Suddenly, the door creaked behind me. I swung around, eyes wide, to see the dive into shadows opening once more. The figures from the parking lot were slinking through, their shapes darker than the corners of the room. I needed to choose, stay and confront the truth, or flee into the unknown. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered out and I was plunged into a still, heavy silence. I felt the presence around me, the weight of unseen eyes. My pulse pounded in my ears. Whatever I chose, I was about to uncover something frightening and real. The weight of silence wrapped around me like a suffocating blanket. I blinked, trying to adjust to the darkness, but it only deepened, swallowing every shred of light. I was alone, but the shadows felt alive, sneering as they watched me. "Anna?" It sounded ridiculous, even to my own ears, but I needed to break the stillness. Nothing. Just silence, heavy and cold. I turned back toward the door, heart racing. The motel felt like a trap. I needed a way out. Footsteps. I froze. They were slow and deliberate just beyond the door. My instincts screamed at me to move, to hide. I stumbled backward, not wanting to be caught so close to the impending danger. Then a soft voice cut through the dark. "Help me!" It was Anna. I felt my stomach twist. Was this real? Could I let her in? I pressed my ear to the door, heart pounding against the wood. She sounded close, desperate. "Please," she whispered again. "You have to remember who I am." My mind raced with confusion. Remember? I couldn't recall anything about her except the anxiety that gnawed at me whenever I thought of the photograph. Did I know her? Why did she need help? The footsteps shifted again, drawing nearer. I glanced around the room, searching for anything to defend myself. There was nothing but the battered furniture and the notebook lying wide open. Anna spoke once more, as if sensing my dread. "You're safe with me. Just let me in." It was tempting. I felt the tug of something familiar, but I hesitated. If I opened that door, what would come flooding in with her? A sudden crash jolted me. The window shattered, flinging glass across the room, and a gust of wind rushed in. I jumped back, gasping. Shadows poured through the broken glass, rushing towards me like a tidal wave. The forms twisted and shifted, moving as if they couldn't decide on a single shape. I bolted for the door, adrenaline pumping. I shoved it open and dashed into the parking lot. My shoes slapped against the pavement, but the noise felt drowned out by the whispers growing louder, more insistent. "Remember, remember," they chanted, a swarm of overlapping voices. I sprinted toward my car, my mind battling to make sense of it all. I had to get away, had to escape. But then through the blur of panic, a thought struck me. What if that address, the one with Anna's name next to it, held answers? I skidded to a halt, almost losing my balance. I hesitated, breaths coming in heaves as I weighed my options. I could flee, bury the past, or confront it head-on. But before I could decide, a shape emerged from the shadows. A tall figure, obscured but undeniably human. My breath hitched, and I was frozen with fear. "Don't you want to know the truth?" it asked, voice deep and smooth, slicing through my thoughts. I blinked, momentarily stunned. "Who are you?" I finally managed, my voice trembling. The figure took a step closer, and I could feel the malicious energy radiating off them. "Someone you can't run from," they replied, the shadows swirling around them like smoke. My heart raced as the weight of impending revelation crashed down. I was about to dive deeper into everything I had tried to escape. My legs felt heavy. I took a step back and the figure followed, closing the gap between us. Shadows twisted and coiled around the man, their tendrils snaking toward me like dark fingers. "Stay away from me!" I shouted, though my voice wobbled with uncertainty. I turned and ran, my heart thudding in my chest. The parking lot felt endless, the lights above flickering as if they were about to fail. I could hear the footsteps behind me, gaining ground, echoing against the concrete. My car was only a few steps away, but it felt miles away. I fumbled for the keys in my pocket, fingers trembling. Swirling darkness followed me, blossoming into human forms with eyes that flickered like fire. "You have to listen," the hissing voices cried. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to block them out. I reached the driver's door, yanked it open, and dove inside. I slammed the door shut, locking it with a frantic motion, and fumbled with the keys. My breath came in sharp gasps. I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see something creeping up behind me. Nothing. Just empty shadows beneath the streetlights. "I need to go," I muttered, slotting the key into the ignition. For a moment, nothing happened. Panic surged as I turned it again. Finally, the engine roared to life. I threw the car into reverse, glancing toward the exit. Just as I was about to floor it, a loud knock rang out on my window. I whipped my head to the side, finding a familiar, terrified face staring back at me. "Anna!" I gasped, the rush of relief flooding through me. But it evaporated instantly when I saw a shadow behind her, lurking just out of my sight. "Get away from her!" I shouted, voice trembling. I flung the passenger door open. She rushed in, eyes wild. "You have to help me." Before I could respond, a shadow lunged for the door. I slammed it shut just in time, feeling the rush of cold air as it missed. Anna turned towards me, her face pale and smeared with sweat. "Who are they?" I demanded. "What do they want?" "They want you," she replied, fear lacing her voice. "Me?" The word felt foreign. "Why?" "Because you're the key," she said, glancing out the window as if the shadows were watching us through the glass. "You have to remember." I swallowed hard. Could I trust her? The quickening whispers crescendoed in my ears, urging me to uncover truths long buried. "Remember what?" I asked, my voice small. "Your past," she whispered, gaze darting nervously. "The address. It's where they're hiding the answers. You have to go there." I shook my head, feeling the weight of the threat outside. What if it's a trap? "Every moment we wait, they get stronger," she insisted. I hesitated, the shadows outside clawing at the windows. They were relentless, an unyielding pressure that dared me to act. As I turned the key in the ignition, adrenaline surged in my veins. "Then let's go." But as I pulled out of the lot, I couldn't shake the feeling that the shadows had already moved. A sudden voice screamed from the rearview mirror, sending a chill through my gut. "You can't run from the truth." I gripped the wheel, my knuckles white. I was charged with dread, racing down the road to whatever awaited me. Unsure if I was driving toward destruction or salvation, the engine roared as I slammed on the accelerator. The tires screeched, propelling us forward. I stole a glance at Anna, who pressed her forehead against the glass, eyes scanning for any sign of the shadows. "Where do we go?" I asked, heart racing. "The address it's in my phone," she stammered, fumbling with her bag. I could tell she was trying to hold it together, but the fear dripped off her like sweat. I thought I had it memorized, but— "Just find it," I snapped, a mix of panic and urgency spilling out. "They could be right behind us." I took a sharp turn, sending the car into a skid. I didn't dare check the mirror, but I could feel the darkness breathing down my neck. She finally pulled out her phone, her fingers trembling as she swiped through the screen. "Here." She read off the address, a place I barely recognized. My heart sank. It felt like a ghost from a past I didn't want to confront. "Are you sure? This is where it started. This is where my memories of you. And them." She bit her lip, struggling to keep her composure. I glanced down the road. The streetlights blurred as I pressed harder on the pedal. "What do you mean, where it started? We're not even sure what we're walking into." "I know, but we need answers, please." Her voice choked, desperation thickening the air between us. I pushed forward, my mind racing with every possibility, every fear. The road was empty, cut by shadows that twisted along the edges. I couldn't shake the feeling that they were watching, lurking in the dark places of my past. As we neared the address, a chill washed over me. The shadows began to thicken. The trees lining the road twisted ominously, almost alive, as if reaching out with fingers made of darkness. "That's it," Anna said, pointing at a decrepit house that loomed before us. It was painful to look at. Vines curled around the porch and shattered windows stared back like hollow eyes. "I can't believe we're doing this," I muttered, a sense of dread pooling in my stomach. "What if they're waiting for us? They won't know we're here yet." Anna clenched her jaw, her determination flaring momentarily. "You have to trust me." I parked the car and we sat in silence for a moment. I could hear the faint rustle of leaves, the kind of unsettling sounds that made every nerve in my body scream to run. With a deep breath, I opened the door, the hinges creaking in protest. A sour aroma filled the air as Anna followed closely behind. The shadows cast by the trees danced across the ground, their shapes elongated and threatening. I hesitated at the foot of the stairs. "They'll come for you. We have to hurry," Anna urged, her voice slicing through the uncertainty that gripped me. I nodded, the weight of my own doubt pressing down. We stepped onto the porch, and as I manipulated the door handle, I could hear a faint whisper carrying in the wind. "Do you hear that?" I asked, pausing. Anna nodded, eyes wide. "What is that?" We exchanged worried glances, just as a figure darted past the window inside the house. I gasped, freezing in place. "Did you see that?" My heart sank. "Yes," Anna replied. "And I think they're already here." Before I could say anything, darkness enveloped the yard. The shadows thickened, swirling around us like fog so close I could feel it brush against my skin. "Run!" I shouted. We bolted back toward the car, but as I turned I saw it. A face, pale and gaunt, peering out from the shadows, its eyes filled with hunger. Just when I thought it was over, I felt a cold grip on my ankle, dragging me backward. "No, Anna!" I screamed, my voice breaking as I clawed at the ground, fighting against the pull. I glanced back at Anna, her terrified expression clear. The figure was coming closer, and I realized this was just the beginning of the nightmare. I felt the cold grip tighten around my ankle, pulling me into the dark. Panic surged as I dug my nails into the gravel, fighting the desperate tug that threatened to drag me away from Anna. "Don't look back," she shouted, her voice sharp and urgent. "Keep running." Her words jolted me, clarity cutting through my fear. I forced myself to focus, tearing my eyes from that ghastly face shrouded in shadow. With every ounce of strength left in me, I threw my free leg forward, clawing toward the car. "Please," Anna cried, her voice trembling. I could hear her footsteps pounding against the wooden planks of the porch. She was still with me. Finally, my heel connected with the bottom of the car door, and I kicked at it, shoving it open violently. I scrambled inside, heart hammering in my chest. I could still feel the ghostly fingers trailing my ankle, lingering just out of sight. "Get in," I shouted, gesturing wildly for her to follow. She hurled herself into the passenger seat, slamming the door shut as if sealing in the darkness. The car vibrated with the thrum of the engine, and I fumbled to restart it. My fingers trembled on the ignition, desperation clawing at my throat. "Go, go, go," Anna shouted, her eyes darting to the rearview mirror. "We have to get out of here." With a jolt, the engine roared to life. I slammed the gear into drive and sped down the long driveway, the tires squealing in protest. We left the house in a cloud of dust and dread, but my heart refused to settle. "Do you know what that thing was?" I asked, glancing at her, breathless. Anna shook her head, confusion and fear mixing in her eyes. I only caught a glimpse, but it felt wrong, like it wanted something from us. I exhaled sharply, recalling the face. It felt like it knew us. As I drove, the road blurred ahead. The trees on either side twisted in the glare of the headlights, shadows morphing and merging into other shapes. It was as if the forest itself was coming to life, to swallow us whole. "There's something else," Anna said slowly, her voice trembling. I think it's not just after me. I think it's after both of us." I shot her a worried look. "What do you mean?" "When I was younger, I saw things that shouldn't have been there. It was like a dark presence was always watching. I thought I was imagining it, until tonight. I felt a cold shiver crawl down my spine." "You saw that thing before?" "I don't know. Maybe. It all feels like a blur," she said, frustration bleeding into her words. "But I can't shake the feeling that it knows who we are." I tightened my grip on the wheel, my mind racing. Why was this happening now? Why us? Just then, something in the rearview mirror caught my eye. A flicker of movement, something slinking along the edge of the forest, impossible to define, but undeniably menacing. My breath hitched as the figure darted behind the nearest tree, then vanished, leaving only the fear of what was lurking in the dark. "Keep driving," Anna urged. That's when I saw it. Another figure at the edge of the forest, but this one was different. Taller, more defined, and it stood perfectly still, staring right at us. A chill swept through the car, freezing me in place. I squeezed the accelerator harder. We need to get away from here. But deeper down, I felt the dread coil tighter. We weren't just running from the past. We were running toward it. I glanced at Anna, and for the briefest moment there was a glimmer of recognition in her eyes. Something we hadn't talked about yet, a fear that ran deeper than the shadows. Before I could ask, the car lurched. We hit something in the road, sending the vehicle swerving. My heart dropped as we skidded off course, tires screaming against the asphalt. And then everything went dark. My heart raced as I jolted awake, disoriented in the remnants of a dream that felt more real than my waking world. The car was still, resting crookedly on the side of the road, half buried in tall grass. I glanced over at Anna, still beside me, her expression a mix of fear and confusion. "What happened?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "I think we crashed." She rubbed her temples as if recollecting a headache, the memories of the shadows, the chase, and the faces lingering in her eyes. The shadows. I could almost feel them creeping closer, as if the darkness hungered for us, waiting just beyond our sight. I quickly assessed our situation. We were lucky to be alive. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving us trapped in an inky blackness that swirled with whispers just beyond comprehension. We stepped out of the car, adrenaline coursing through our veins despite the sudden stillness that had enveloped us. Anna's hands trembled as she fixed her hair and steadied herself. "We need to get away from here, but where do we go?" The eerie feeling swelled around us, shadows melding into grotesque forms at the fringes of our vision. I swallowed hard and recalled the address from earlier, the one connected to her name and the dark memories. "Maybe we should investigate that house." "Are you out of your mind?" she snapped, jaw tense as panic ignited in her eyes. "They're hunting us. Why would we go back?" I hesitated, the weight of my fear clashing with an instinctual need to uncover truths that had been buried for too long. I'd felt it all along. That connection to her. and whatever shadow hung over our past. Because if we don't understand what's pursuing us, we'll always be running. Maybe confronting it is our only option. We exchanged another worried glance, and I sensed we were united in our trepidation. Anna took a step toward the road, determination flaring within her. Okay, fine. But if we do this, we're together every step of the way. With our resolve fortified, we slowly made our way back toward the abandoned house, the darkness becoming heavier around us. We approached cautiously, shadows flickering in the corners of our vision. Each step seemed to echo louder than the last, adding weight to our uncertainty. When we reached the door, an old chill brushed against my skin. The air around us felt alive. The whispers were back, softer now yet still dissonant, blending into a haunting symphony. "We'll find them," I murmured, more as reassurance to myself than a promise to Anna. The door creaked open, revealing a darkened interior where memories lingered imbued with pain. Dust motes hung in the air like trapped spirits, suspended in time. The shadows danced along the walls, their dark whispers curling around us. Inside, the remnants of a life lost sprawled across the floor, photos, furniture, and who knew what else cluttered the fading memories that clung like cobwebs. I swallowed my fear and reached for the light switch. Nothing. "Great," Anna said, her voice shaky. "This place is so twisted I can almost feel it watching us." "I know," I replied, anxiety gnawing at my confidence. "But we need to search. There has to be something here that ties us to whatever those shadows are." As we moved deeper into the house, the air grew thick with something inexplicable. The walls felt alive, shifting, revealing fragments of hidden history. I could feel the presence of something watching us, but the shadows remained elusive, teasing as they danced just beyond reach. Anna paused and pulled away from me, heading toward a door at the other end of the room, her eyes wide. "Wait. I think I saw something." I followed closely, the shadows in the corner of my eye shifting, beckoning. As she opened the door, a thin beam of silver moonlight poured into the dim room beyond, illuminating a small table. There, a journal lay open, its pages filled with frantic writing that matched the scrawls from the smaller notebook. I stepped closer as Anna read aloud. "They're coming back for her. We can't lose her again." A chill ran through me. In that instant, I felt myself tethered to a past I had long thought buried. Memories I couldn't grasp came flooding back, of laughter, of love, of loss. The family from the photograph. "Anna, this is about you," I said in disbelief. "These are your parents." Then outside, an urgent rustling echoed through the night, breaking my thoughts. "They know we're here!" I shouted, urgency sparking fear into every corner of my being. "Run!" Anna cried, her voice sharp with dread. But as we hurried to the door, shadows flooded in, engulfing us in a clawing embrace. Then everything went dark once more. I gasped awake, lying flat on the floor of the abandoned house, disoriented and sweaty, with whispers surrounding me. My heart raced in rhythm to that familiar rush of fear. I blinked against the light that flickered from a lantern. Anna slumped beside me, looking strangely serene. Her anxieties muted. "Are we dreaming?" I muttered, voice weak. "I don't think so," she whispered, her vacant gaze fixed ahead. "But it feels so real, like it's happening all over again." I frowned, realizing the journal had vanished, along with her parents' echoes, leaving only the shadows, hungry and shifting as they watched from the corners. What do we do now? For a moment we found solace in silence. Then a thought crept in, gnawing at my thoughts. Did we know the truth we were chasing, or were we merely puppets of a much larger game being played by unseen forces? As the shadows began to close in around us, I couldn't shake the question that lingered in my mind: what was real and what was not? We clutched each other tighter, feeling the darkness breathe, and as it consumed us, we grasped for answers just out of reach. Just then, a single flickering light broke through the darkness. Was it hope or another trick of the shadows? What lay ahead, I couldn't be sure, but I knew in that moment we'd have to choose, face the truths waiting for us, or surrender to whatever the darkness had in mind. The echoes of the unknown thrummed in the air as we braced ourselves to continue this rabbit hole of shadows, knowing the end was nowhere in sight.